Hi everybody, this is Ismael with another video, and I'm here in my kitchen. I'm still kind of working on putting together kind of a makeshift art studio in my basement. If you recall from the last video I made, we had moved and we're in a new home and house, and it's taking us a while since it's just myself and my wife, and we're working hard to put things together. But I wanted to shoot this video because one of the things that has, as we're entering a new school year, there are a number of things that I think art teachers, especially the new ones that are coming in, need to be aware of and should be thinking about as the weeks wind down, as the summer weeks wind down, and September is right around the corner. Of course, there are a lot of schools around the country that actually started earlier. I'm in New York, so of course, the school year starts in September for us. In other states, even in Puerto Rico, where my family's from, also they start in August, basically. The school year starts in August for them. So what I did want to talk about is, as you're approaching, and I'm doing the same thing, I'm trying to kind of get my mind back into, teaching art and so on. I mean, I really, during my summer times, I don't try to think about the job as much because breaks are important, mentally speaking. It's really important that you take the time to rest, because our teachers know that it is a tough job, especially in public school systems where you may have up to 300, up to 600, and in some cases up to 900 kids that you have to teach art to in a week. And most people don't understand that, who don't teach art or don't understand the rigors that it goes through. And, I have colleagues throughout the school system that teach more than one grade. They have to figure out what's the appropriate lesson, what's appropriate project for them, for that particular grade, and so on. And there's also a lot of scrutiny. What are we teaching? How are we teaching it? Lesson plans. I mean, it can be real difficult, especially if you're like me. I just love art. Period. I mean, if I could be a full-time artist right now, this very moment, I would. I would not mind retiring like tomorrow, and teaching. And doing art. I would still kind of work with kids. There's not like I hate teaching, nothing like that. It's just that it's when you have your own schedule. Of course, it's always best. I mean, if you can control your time really well and do what you want to do, and instead of doing what you have to do, it's kind of a different mode of thinking. But I did want to touch on a couple of things that I think teachers, especially new teachers and even senior teachers, should really consider. One of them, as you're approaching, if you haven't done this already, if you're teaching already, or someone who's about to teach, think about, or asking for, depending on the school that you're working for, because if you're working with other art teachers, they may have it already, but for a curriculum map. Now, a curriculum map is basically a sheet or a couple of sheets of paper where listed are the projects and the lessons you'll be teaching throughout the year. In my case, it would be more like projects, because that's how I'm more project based. I'm not into all this cerebral stuff that unfortunately it's required in so many schools, because kids just want to do art. They don't, they're getting enough writing enough math and science and all that stuff in other classrooms. When they come to an art room, they want to be creative. They want to have some fun. They want to have something interesting to do that is very different from any of their other classes, and art should provide that. That doesn't mean that they're not thinking. It doesn't mean that they're not critically thinking, which is the key to a good art lesson. But you also want them to feel safe and to feel that they can be who they need to be and to do their artwork that in a sense to do artwork that really helps them figure new things and to explore the world that they live in. I think the exploration of materials is extremely important. I used to have two professors, one that was very material based back in my college days, and one that felt that everything had to be analyzed, everything had to be assessed, everything had to. And I'll be honest with you, that got boring really fast. The teacher that we all kind of liked was the material or the project based professor, because she was hands on. We were actually doing projects in the classroom and during her lectures to really help us think and how we can evaluate materials and help students use those materials, regardless if it was watercolor, paint, or paper, or clay. These were really important foundations, I think, for me as an art teacher, but I think for many others as well. You can learn all that other cerebral stuff from, once you're working in the school. Believe me, the ELA teacher, the social studies teacher, the science teacher, in many cases will be available for that. And, you're going to get PDs anyway, or should be getting PDs in your school that help you kind of structure and deal with that. Besides figuring out, that was my cat. That's what I did that. Besides figuring out how to grade art, which, again, that's one of my other pet peeves, which I really don't like to do. I would prefer if it was a pass-fail grade over an actual grade, comparing one student to the other, who's better and that kind of thing. I don't think it's a great idea, but in the grading sense, I think a pass-fail is much better. And most kids will pass because, even if they do a little bit of work, if you have students that are difficult, as long as they try, I think that's a really good meter. Some people may disagree with that. You have to listen, whatever, if you have especially a difficult child, you really should try to always give them the opportunity to try, and don't be, overbearing with them, but, really help them see that this would be something interesting. If not, try something else. And that's usually how it goes. So a curriculum map will help you structure, will also help you with your pacing, figure out how long a project is going to be. Of course, administrators love them because, you're also describing aspects of the lesson, and it's like kind of like almost a mini short lesson plan in a funny way. But you also can state there what kind of critical thinking skills you're putting into the lesson. Parts of it will have, depending on the type of curriculum map you're working with, you'll be working, you'll be planning the lesson. And if you're someone new, and someone gives you a curriculum map, let's say for a specific grade, it will definitely spearhead you into figuring out how your lessons should go. Now, some schools will have them. Some teachers will have them, as far as other art teachers. Some will not. And my heart goes out to all those who have to kind of start from scratch. But if you're looking at this, if you're seeing this video, I would tell you, go online. There are a ton of curriculum maps for the visual arts. in on the web. If you're from New York, of course, there is a New York City-based visual arts websites for education online, and I would advise you to go there and look those things up. Okay, I'm gonna try to put some of those links on the comments below, and this way you have um, a way to go, a way to start. Okay, that's really important. Um, Remember that as you're teaching throughout the year, and this is really for new teachers, I think senior teachers or teachers who have been doing this for a while kind of know this part, is you should be always scrutinizing your own lessons, like really seeing what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be revamped. At the end of the year, of course, every school year, you want to really, what lesson worked, what didn't work. I know I had a real difficulty with one of my last lessons last year, and I realized that it wasn't a good idea for me, and I was teaching a comic book lesson, to have started it late in the year. I should have started it more like in the middle of the year. Um, I needed to really define the deadlines for each part a little better. So those are things you learn as you're going along. And, I would never teach that lesson now in the middle of the year. I mean, at the end of the year, which I did last year. I would do it more in the middle of the year and maybe tweak it much more, maybe make it smaller, maybe make it bigger. It really all depends also on the class. I wouldn't teach the comic book lesson to everybody because some kids really struggle because you have to do a lot of it's a storytelling lesson, really. You're telling a story, and you have to look at all those components of what makes a lesson, right? If you're saying you want your kids to do watercolor, well, what's the subject? What's the main thing? Is it going to be a landscape? Why is it going to be a landscape? You see, you have to ask that question. What are they learning by doing a landscape? I do a bird lesson every year because I'm also a fanatic with birds, but I use a ton of references of different birds from all over the world. But why am I teaching that lesson, right? Connect it. Like, for instance, if I were to talk to you about the bird lesson, we're connecting to a number of different things. One, ontology, right? Or I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I always get this wrong. Ornithology. I think that's the correct term. I always get it wrong. But the study of birds, in terms of the sciences, how it connects to sciences, anatomy, the environment. Hello. The real importance of these beautiful creatures living on our planet and how we need to not only preserve them, help, but it also speaks about the importance of why we should consider taking better care of our environment. Because if birds can't live in our environment, we are going to be in trouble as human beings. So you want to make connections to why this lesson has relevance. Why is it important for the students to learn? Are they just painting birds just for the sake of it? Is it just an art project about birds? But no, you have to have a little bit more with that. A curriculum map will kind of help you with those ideas if you have one already, or if someone can give you one. I'm looking down at my notes here for a little bit just so I can kind of remember some of the things I want to share with you today. Don't be afraid to take pictures in other places. Let's say if you see a lesson plan, or if you feel you can get a copy of it from somebody else of a project. I wanted to mention that because there's a wonderful book, and I'm so sorry that the name of the author eludes me right now, but you'll find it because it's out there, and the name of the book is called Steal Like an Artist, right? And it's a really wonderful little book that is chock full of realistic ideas, real practices that artists have had with regarding to getting ideas for paintings and sculptures and things of that nature, or whatever work you do. I have a copy of it. I just, among my many books, I have to look for it. But the reason I mentioned this book is that art teachers have to do the same thing. You have to steal like an art teacher. And what I mean by that is ideas, bulletin boards that you may see by another art teacher. Usually it's a requirement in bulletin boards to describe the lesson and the standards by which those lessons were created, and you want to look at that. I have my camera, my phone, and I take pictures, a lot of them. I do not care what people say or think or feel about me doing that because it helps me. It may not even be a lesson that I like or a project that I like, but I want to gain an insight, a better understanding. Why did they make this lesson? Why is it important? Why is this art? What kind of significance does it have in the life of the student, more so than you, of course, because you want it to mean something to the kids. So learn to really have that camera handy, and take pictures. Don't just do it in museums, do it in your school. And if you have other art teachers that work with you that are doing some great stuff, take a picture of their bulletin board. Why not? What's the problem? Is it secret? No. If it's in the public domain, you can take a picture of it and just say, oh, you want to keep it for your records, which you are. I don't use other people's, let's say, projects to copy them. I use them to learn from them, and I use them also to get other ideas. I may do the same lesson, yeah, but I may do it differently. And, I don't have the lesson plan. And sadly, art teachers, there are some art teachers that are very protective for whatever reason. Maybe they feel that it's too personal or whatever it is. They can come up with all these different reasons that they don't want to share an art lesson with you, a fellow art teacher. This has happened many times. For whatever reason, they freak out. They think you're going to steal their idea, which is out in the open. They don't want you to see their procedure, their way they do it. They may have a ton of different reasons for that. I personally feel that if you're an art teacher and you see and you know of other art teachers that are coming up after you who really admire and respect your work, why can't you share your lesson with them? Is it made out of gold or something? Or, are you keeping a secret? What the heck? Help that teacher. Give them, show them your lessons so they could see the structure and get an idea of how they can work on their lesson. And I say this to all art teachers out there, especially the seasoned ones. There are art teachers that do this. They always say, well, you're going to have to do your own art lesson, and not give them any help on what that is. Not give them an example, not show them anything. And to those art teachers, I think you should be ashamed. Because, this is why the arts get screwed a lot, in schools, because teachers don't help teachers when they should. If you're not an art teacher that feels that everything that you're making is made out of gold or some secret or whatever, share it. What's the big deal? I've been fortunate, thank God, that I have worked with some really wonderful, wonderful art teachers in my school, who, in my opinion, are probably the most brilliant art teachers I've ever met. And been able to look at their lesson plans, been able to look at their PowerPoints, taking pictures of their bulletin boards, without any, backlash or, fear of, whatever. The only thing is not repeat the same lesson. For instance, if I'm teaching something for sixth grade, you don't want to, the seventh grade art teacher doesn't want, feels, oh no, I'm doing that lesson for seventh grade. They're going to end up doing it twice. Sometimes it's different, like there's different parts of it that you can change, but sometimes it isn't. So you have to kind of work that out, you have to negotiate what different things you could do. And that's why art teachers should be meeting at least once a week and discussing those things. And that's okay. You don't have to, nothing's written in stone. You have to be able to work together. And that's why curriculum map, going back to that, why that's important. And you should really feel that you can put those things together in a way that will help you. Like I said, go online. Please do that, and find out what is the best way to form one. And I think it's ChatGPT that is very helpful if you ask it, what is a curriculum map? How do I put one together? And you could be specific with ChatGPT, and I love that about that, because it kind of reduces the amount of legwork you got to do. It's not perfect, but it will give you an idea of where to go. And of course, talk to other people, figure out other things. I don't like to rely on AI for very much. I'm just not a big fan of that. But when you're pressed for time, and right now, the school year is literally around the corner. It's this year starting earlier than last year, and I'm already missing my my summer vacation, even though I'm still off. But these are things that you need to think about and consider. So, of course, I'll put those links below this video. So don't be afraid to see what other art teachers are doing. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If people are touchy-feely about it, hey, such is life. But if I see a bulletin board, I'm taking a picture of it. And guess what? I don't need a permission to be in a public school and take a picture of a bulletin board. Really don't. No matter what they say, and I have thousands of photos of bulletin boards through all my travels, because if it's a good lesson, why can't I take a picture of it? It's on the board so everybody can see it. I just need a picture so I can keep it, so I can go over it and figure out some things for myself. So don't be afraid to do that. I think, especially when you're starting out, and if you don't have people that are helpful, which it happens, unfortunately, do what you can. I'm hoping down the road, when I'm a little bit more savvy with this video stuff, right now I really can't give it the kind of time it deserves, that I could show these type of things on the screen. I unfortunately am literally working from camera to face, and it seems like a talking head type of video. But I hope whatever I shared today really genuinely helps you. So one of the things I want you to, again, think about is get a curriculum map. If you don't have one already, you should have one. All art teachers should have a plan for the year, a curriculum map that kind of gives you a sense of structure of the lessons. But you should always have that, a list. I have curriculum maps, not just on my grade. I look at seventh grade, I look at eighth grade, I even look at fifth grade to see what kids should have gotten. Some cases, some kids have not gotten any art, which I think is criminal in my view, because every child in this country should have some art in their lives, and the schools, public and private, should always be providing visual arts, because if you want nuance, if you want innovation, if you want students to think critically, it's the arts, baby. It's the arts. It's the visual arts. It's dance. It's theater. It's music. You know, and you know, like I tell parents also, you know, if you want your child to be an engineer, they should know how to draw. If you want your student to know, if you want your child to know to be an architect, or if they want to be an architect, they should know how to draw. Drawing is crucial to almost every field that's out there in the world. And do not think for a moment that is not true. I have heard countless of stories. I mean, I know guys who were graphic artists that joined the military and were doing something else, and then when people got wind that they have a soldier or a military person that can draw and draw well, all of a sudden they're doing something for the military that deals with graphic design or art, or you know, something in that nature, whatever the military of course will need. But having a skill like being able to draw can work in any field. In medicine, one of the most famous books, medical books, is Gray's Anatomy. Have you ever seen that book? It's full of drawings, man. You know, it's full of drawings. You know, they're still studying Da Vinci's drawings of the human body that he did over what, 500-600 years ago. Come on, man. Let's stop this foolishness. Drawing is crucial for the development and the growth of any human being. It doesn't even matter if you start later in life. You keep working on it, you're going to get better. And if we can get kids to start early and to see the real beauty of it and the importance of it, you know, it helps in so many ways, you know. Storytelling. I mean, look at comic books today. Comic books are not what most people think they are. They're not little, you know, you go to Japan alone, you know how serious the Japanese take manga and comic books and all that. We're talking about adults with gray hair who read manga, right? But that's not only over there, obviously. In the United States, when I grew up, all the great or the crazy kind of almost neurotic about comic books were all the old fellows that I used to hang out with, and women too, because they're women that love comics. Of course, I don't want to say they aren't. There are many wonderful women that do that. But, you know, storytelling, I mean, goodness sakes, we all have stories to tell, don't we? We all have life experiences. Oh my God, do comic books help in the area of telling a story? You better believe it. So anyway, I'm kind of on a tangent there, but I just want to express that these are the kind of things, this is how you have to think as an art teacher. Don't limit your practice as an artist, first of all, and as an art teacher when it comes to seeing those connections within the fields of art that deal with design, that deal with drawing, that deal with painting, that deal with sculpture, right? Printmaking, hello, and so many others. Jewelry making, fashion, vehicle design, sciences, rockets, hello, telescopes. Somebody had to design that stuff. Somebody needed to know how to draw and use a ruler. Hello. And are those things not connected to math and science? Come on, man. And this is what I mean, right? But anyway, that's my video for today. And I really genuinely hope that you have a wonderful school year, if there's any new art teachers watching this video. And if you're new to the profession, really learn as much as you can. Your first years are tough for anybody, but really try to do the best you can and learn from whoever will teach you. And unfortunately, if you do work with let's say a difficult art teacher, someone who doesn't really want to share what they do, don't worry about that. There will be others that will. And just, do the research, do the work. And, if there's a particular art project that you like to do, like me, I took, my love of birds, my love of the science of the study of birds, and made it into a lesson and made it into an art project that has been really wonderful for me as someone who teaches it, but also for the students who really have, oh my God, when the kind of artwork they have done, it's just mind blowing. Such beautiful work. Find that. You could start with that, And listen, I wish you the very best. And have a great school year again. And until next time, remember that art can change the world. And, you're part of that world. So you take care. God bless.